Hey, welcome everybody. I'm hoping everybody can see and hear us right now. This is a little bit of a new experience for me, so we're trying to figure it out. This is Nolan Myrick with TEKsystems.
Hey guys, how's everyone doing? I'm excited to see everyone, or not, I guess I can't see, but I'm excited to be here. Again, I am Tyrone Foster with TEKsystems as well.
I think I've got us both in there now.
There you go. Yeah.
Cool. Well, welcome everybody. We appreciate you joining us today. Again, we wish we could see everybody. We'll spend a little bit of time today talking about cybersecurity careers. We're calling it securing your path, just for a little play on words there. But our primary focus is just really kind of helping folks get a little bit of perspective on the market, maybe have some tips or tricks in terms of approaching how you build your resume, how you build your brand in the marketplace. That's really Teron's expertise. He's built a great career on that with us. And then my side will be a little bit more around some of the labor market information, and then maybe some more security specific information. So I'll kick it over here to Teron to introduce himself.
Yeah, okay, let's do it. Cool guys. So my name is Tyrone Foster. Again, I sit in the big city of North Carolina in Greensboro. Excited to be in this city. It's the best city of them all. So I started with TEKsystems in June of 2016, right out of school. It was my first role out of college. I went to the North Carolina A&T State University, Aggie Pride all day. So I went to A&T. I majored in marketing with the focus in sales. And then upon graduation in 2016, I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like, I want to go into sales. This is something I'm really excited about, but I don't know with what company. So TEKsystems came on site, and I was able to do something considered like one of my final semester, test was to do a role play with the TEKsystems representative. Did the role play. The guy was like, hey, come interview for my company. And I'm like, okay, like, let's do it. So I interviewed with TEKsystems, and that's where I got my start. I started June 2016 again in the technical staffing recruiter role. And in that role, my responsibility was to network with the local IT market, understanding their skills, understanding their goals, understanding their interests, building those relationships with the IT professionals so I could potentially be that bridge for them in regards to getting into one of those Fortune 500 organizations that we work with on a weekly basis. Nolan Myrick was actually my account manager. So kudos to you did something right. No, Nolan is great, guys. And so after that, it was coming, I think it was around the end of 2017. I'm like, okay, what's next for me? And then I was approached and asked to join our talent acquisition team. So I joined our talent acquisition team as a university relations recruiter in January of 2018. And so pretty much my primary responsibility, I'm over the whole Southeast region, and I have select focus schools that I'm responsible for, going and presenting around professional development topics to seniors, juniors, and also recruiting those students to join our internship and our full-time opportunities across the company. And here I am. I love it.
Very cool. Thank you, Teron. And you can tell Teron's got all the energy in the group. I'm here just kind of low key hanging out, but he always keeps us going and keeps us full of energy. As he mentioned, he and I worked together for several years, and I'm super proud of him. He's just done an awesome job, and we love him. My career was similar to Teron's at the beginning. I started in technical staffing when I started with TEKsystems, and then I diverged a little bit from where Teron was going, as he went into internal recruiting and is now driving a team in the Southeast. I've moved more onto the sales side, so I'm in front of our clients across the Triad. And I've worked across a lot of different skill sets. I've done application development work. I've worked across QA testing, infrastructure work, desktop support. And currently what I've evolved into is a division lead for our risk and security services here in the Triad. So I basically help drive the strategy around building out our risk and security relationships and connections, and then making sure we're delivering on the promises that we give to people. Prior to TEKsystems, I had a kind of a unique background. I was a college basketball coach. I've been coaching basketball for around 20 years now, all the way from little kids up to collegiate athletes at one point. And that's one of my big passions. So when I'm not working, trying to help folks out transitioning and help companies complete stuff from a security standpoint. That's what I like to do. So that's kind of the overview of us. I think next we'll kick over into a summary of TEKsystems, and I can try to give a quick rundown here.
Yeah.
Really, we have three buckets that I think of when I think of our company. So we have the staffing bucket, which is kind of probably where most of you or most people know us. We're able to provide resources on a one-off or bulk basis, depending on what the needs are, to help accomplish projects for companies. My focus again is specifically around the information security and risk and compliance space. And then within that staffing area, we have different divisions. So we have application development, which includes QA testing and all that application maintenance, things like that. Then we have our dynamic workplace services division, which includes help desk, desktop support, some type of application support. Then we have a telecom division. We have an infrastructure optimization division, which also includes our risk and security services group. So those are kind of the staffing buckets if I'm looking at them that way. And then we have a training services division. So we have a really, really robust offering in terms of training services. It can be, for our consultants, they have free training that's online and available as they're working for us. There's over 3,000 courses there. And then for our clients, we offer, customizable and sort of more cookie cutter based training, depending on what the need is and the bulk and the volume of their training program. So those are the two buckets that people might know us by the best. The one that we've really seen the most growth in over the last few years is really our global services division. So they are taking a more practice-based approach where we take on more risk and responsibility in our engagements with clients. So that's the one where we see the biggest growth. I think that's about a $500 million, maybe $600 million organization as part of our company right now. So that's kind of an overview.
And how I like to explain it, we're like the celebrity IT job matchmaker. We're number one in the industry, and we are finding, our responsibility is finding and being that bridge and being that, that match for IT professionals in our local market, and then also with our Fortune 500 organization. So, you will only want to work with the best, right? And so this goes into the next point.
Yes. So kind of leading off of Teron, where Teron's going, this is a little bit of data. Of course, we're trying to get the bragging out of the way early. We got to share our story, but we wanted to make sure everyone knows we currently and have been since 2000 the leading IT staffing and services company in the market. This number, about 3.8 billion, is our 2018 number. Still pretty close to that. This number here, 4.3, includes our global services division, which I mentioned is about $500 million, a little more. Locations all around the country. So if you're looking to transfer jobs to different areas, we can help you. And then more on the client side, where I'm involved more, really, it's about having that footprint where we can support you in every location and internationally across Europe and Asia. So pretty neat offering we have there. Do about 80,000 deployments a year in terms of consultants and placements. So that's pretty significant. And then we're also a part of a big, massive, financially stable company, Allegis Group, which owns multiple entities similar to ourselves, like Aerotech and Major Lindsay in Africa and groups like that. So I'll pass it over to Teron now. This is really his expertise.
Yeah. So when we were planning out this presentation, we're like, what do we really want to make sure that we, hone in on during this time? We're dealing with, coronavirus, COVID-19 pandemic. So it's a lot of time that we have now that we can sit back and say, all right, cool. What is my goal? Like career mapping, network mapping. I think our chat function is working. Who knows what network mapping is? Network or career mapping? Can someone type that in for me? What do you think network and career mapping is? Okay, Jeff, goal planning. Yeah. Yep.
Thanks for your participation, Jeff.
Yeah.
Contacting everyone agree for sure. Staying in touch, right? Planning goals with target and things in mind. That's right. Yep.
That's a good one. Yeah. So you guys are right. I guess there's no wrong answer, but there is a right answer. You guys are right on. So networking career mapping is really, making an outline or coming up with an outline to show where I am currently and where I want to be. Right. So it means putting together a guideline of where you think your career or where you think you'll go in the years to come. It can be professionally, it can be personally. And not only do you outline your goals in the near and far future, but you also mark down the steps that it takes that you'll need to take to get there. And we'll dig into that later on as well, which is goal setting. And so whether your dream is to of being the CEO of TEKsystems or creating your own one-man or one-woman technology startup, career mapping and network mappings, once you get in on your on your visible list that you'll be looking at, it allows you to nail down this information, allows you to nail down the necessary steps to get to where you want to go. Right. So if we break it down even further, we must understand, what are you trying to achieve? Right. So when considering this, it's important to simply understand your why. Right. So why am I doing this? What is my, why did I decide to, take this role as a university recruiter? Like, understanding your why sets you apart. So everyone starts with the purpose in everything, both personally and professionally. So why do you want to buy a home? Right. Why do you want this specific career? Why do you see yourself as the CEO? Why do you want to, do this? Why did you want to go to that specific college that you chose? So understanding your why is super, super, super important. And so the same thing happens when you're networking. When you're networking and building out your career, understanding why. Why am I networking? What is my end goal? What am I trying to achieve? And go back to your why and discover that. So cool. So then after that, we're goal setting, right? How can you set goals for something if you don't know your why? Right. So I want to be the best recruiter on this world. That's my why, is because I have a passion behind it. I have a passion to, wanting to see other people develop professionally. That's my why. And so I can set my goals around my why. And if I want to be the best recruiter, I understand why I want to do it. Right. So understanding what your ultimate goal is and work towards it, but understand that it's all about how you chart your own course. What I love about goal setting and charting my own course is it's simple. It's my course. So I get to make, in my mind, I get to make like, hey, I want to be here. In 2 years, I'm going to be here. And if I miss it, it's because of my own goal set. It's because of the execution behind the goals as well. But that's the great thing about charting your own course. You get to chart your own course. So making sure that you're also creating those short-term and those long-term goals, and making sure that they are manageable, making sure that they're realistic, those SMART goals, visible and specific. And we'll dig into that a little later as well. And so after you understand what your network mapping is, or what your career mapping is, or understanding your why, understanding your goals, who is your target audience, right? So understanding who you should be networking with, understanding who you should market yourself with, market yourself towards, or, who you should have relationships with, who you should, look up on LinkedIn. Oh, Nolan, like, I know he has, he knows everything about IT staffing, specifically in the risk and security space. So I'm going to reach out to Nolan, like, duh. So I have like my target audience in mind, because I know Nolan will be able to help me professionally. I know Nolan will be able to give me insight on the trends that TEKsystems is seeing within the cyber and risk space and security space overall. So that's what I mean when I say what or who is your target audience. So understanding that. And then lastly, learn and adjust as you go. One of the biggest issues that that people have with career mapping or network mapping is that it can box people into specific roles and specific goals. And while it might be better for them to be more open-minded, and what happens when you get an unexpected opportunity or life events get in the way of your map, right? What do? You adjust. right? So when COVID-19 came, and we were all like, oh my God, what's going on? Like the economy is going to collapse. Like we're about to hit a recession. What do I do? This is the opportunity, or I see this as an opportunity for you to learn new things. This is an opportunity. You've been in your dream job for like 20 years already, but hey, now it's time to branch out and see what else is out there. Now it's time to branch out and see what other tools I can start picking up. What other security specific tool or terminology or certain technologies should I get my hands wet with while we are in this COVID-19 era? This is the time where you can brush up on those skills. This is the time where you can, find ways that you can set yourself apart when the market does, pick back up in regards to hiring. And I still don't think IT staffing, the numbers are like, what, the unemployment rate is, it's still low for IT. And I know Nolan is going to get into that a little later, but yeah, so learn and adjust as you go. You're human, we're human, things happen, but the thing is we adjust, we pick it up and we keep going. Industries, technologies, everything changes over time. So it's important to know that some of your long-term goals might get changed by circumstances outside of your control. It's okay, it can still go on your goal or your networking map, but it may just take a little longer to achieve, which is fine. It's your own course, right? And so again, when we get into goal setting, not only do you outline your goals in the near and the far future, but you also mark down the steps that you'll need to take to get there, right? Whether again, like if you like, I'm gonna be the CEO of TEKsystems one day, like I'm gonna do it, like right? Is that realistic? Yes, it's realistic. My company, we promote from within. It's 100% promote from within. So I know there's potential for me to one day become the CEO. Do I want to become the CEO? I don't know. So that's like a discussion for like later, maybe. Yeah, so you just dig in on your goals and you figure it out. You can't figure out where you're going until you know where you are, right? So, the best thing about, you get to make all the decisions without any interference. If you are clear that you want to own your own company by the time you're 35, then you need to create a long-term map, like if you're graduating college or something like that, a long-term map that will get you there. If you are clear that you want to advance into a managerial role in your current role or your current company, then you can start creating a more smaller, a short-term map that'll get you there. And so I consider, like, all the time I think back, I'm like, when I went through college, what was my dream? Like, what was something, like that I really wanted to do when I was in college? Did I want to be like, could I see myself as a CEO my freshman year of college? I'm not sure. But it's just going back to those goals that you initially had and, understanding, like, why did I let go of that goal? If it's like advancing within the security realm, and understanding that you maybe have settled for a specific role, go back to that goal. Like, hey, I only plan on being in this specific security role for a year. I only plan, but now it's going on 5 years. Now is the time for me to understand what steps do I need to start making now to get me to that long-term goal, or that goal that I initially had that I let go. Right? So, clear your list of habits, clear your list of those things, and instead focus on what things you're doing because you love to do them. I love security because of this. I love security because I can, figure out problems with ease, right? So figure out your why and figure out why you love security and how do you can you continue to grow within that. So first, make sure your goals are manageable. While we all have lofty goals, and I think that's awesome. I want, like, maybe to, have like a 10-bedroom home, like in the Bahamas. I don't know. That's lofty, but it's also crucial that I set attainable expectations and I'm realistic around that as well. So, my lofty goal, I can't have a 10, like right now, there's no way that is realistic or manageable for me to have a 10-bedroom home in the Bahamas at, 24 years old, when I'm just starting my career. Like, okay, So make sure your goals are manageable. Creating a timeline that requires too much of yourself too soon can be a recipe for disaster. And so make sure your objectives are meaningful to you, not just those around you. Outside of that, milestones should be realistic and built around what your success looks like for you personally versus what society or success in society looks like. So I remember growing up, my mom and my dad, they would say, hey, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be, a lawyer, you're going to be a great engineer, but that's not what success looked like for me. I knew I wanted to be in a role where, I could be building relationships, I could be, out meeting people all of the time. That's my thing. And I knew that, if they would have put me into that box, I would have been unhappy in my career. So making sure that your goals are manageable is huge. Making sure that they're realistic, making sure that your goals are, specific to you, and making sure that they are attainable. And you put those expectations around it, right? So again, keep it visible. Write down your goals. It will not help you much if you forget about it. Right. So the reason that some of us have maybe been stagnant is because we haven't, put our goals like on our mirrors or put our goals on our whiteboards. I have a little mini whiteboard and I write down each day my to-do list. I write down like, these are the goals that I want to accomplish by the end of the day or in the week. I want to do a workout. All right, cool. Scratch it off. And it's an excitement that I get when I keep, my goals visible and I can scratch them off like, wow, I conquered that. And I keep going and I keep going. Setting reminders in your phone and computer will help you, to jog your memory when you're getting caught up in the day-to-day. Sticky notes. I had a coworker who had sticky notes like posted like everywhere on her desk. I'm like, how do you manage to work in here? But that's what worked for her. And so finding that thing, that works for you, whether it's journaling, whether it is that sticky note, whether it is having like your personal whiteboard on your desk every day and being able to cross that out, finding that out for you, that's it, right? So the more, and then of course, being specific, the more specific your goals are, the easier they will be to reach, right? So that means that if you want to earn an advanced degree, get a specific professional certification, or even learn another language that might be useful for you in the future, it should go on the map. Right? Because you made it specific. You made like, hey, this is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to get there. And then I always love to tell people, consider those lifestyle considerations as well. That should always be accounted for. For example, if you want to be able to eventually, reach 4 weeks of vacation per year, or even get to a point to where you can make time to train for a marathon, put it in your plan. One thing that I had in my plan when I first started this role, in my university role, when I was transitioning from the technical recruiting role. So in technical recruiting, we love to take our consultants out on lunch. We love to build those relationships over lunch, just eating. And so my thing was like, wow, I love to eat. I don't know, you probably can't tell, but I love to eat. And so once TEKsystems told me like, hey, you'll be responsible for taking your consultants out and building that relationship over lunch. I'm like, yeah, you sold me at lunch. And so with that, I had gained a lot of weight. And so when I transitioned into the university recruiting role, I was doing a ton of traveling. I had to, I'm in the airport and I'm losing breath. I am walking college campuses. I haven't walked college campuses in 3 years at that point. And I'm like, oh my God, like it's hot out here. Like I'm walking Virginia Tech. I'm like, are you serious? Like a campus should not be this big. And I have on a suit. But one thing I did is I put it on my board. I put it on so I could have that specific goal visible to me. Teron, I want to lose weight. I want to lose at least 30 pounds by such and such. And I work towards that goal. Every 2 weeks I weighed in like, wow, one step closer to my goal. And it kept me going. It kept driving me to reach that ultimate. And yes, if you're asking if I reached my goal, I reached my goal. Now, COVID-19 may have put on a few extra, but we're getting back there. I'm getting back to my original goal. But then also, guys, and finishing this out, make sure your goals are flexible. I don't think I can stress that enough. And I think that's going back to my earlier point. Sometimes we can just box ourselves in to specific things. I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to do that. And it doesn't make room for us learning new things. It doesn't make room for us to, nothing is set in stone. And I think that's something that COVID-19 has taught me. Is to be more flexible, right? One thing for me was like I traveled so much, I enjoyed my weekends, and I just would stay at home by myself, and I wouldn't consider like my friends, like, hey, I need to rest. I wouldn't consider my family. But what COVID-19 has taught me, or goal setting, or being flexible, is like, hey, like nothing is ever set in stone. So go spend time with your family, right? And so yeah, so I love how you tackle your goals. Thank you. You can do the same thing. Perfect. Cool. So as we were moving on, did you update your resume? This is my favorite part. So I want you guys to type in real quick, how often should you update your resume? How often would you say you should update your resume? Every time there's a change, changes. Weekly. Yes, Nancy. You're great point. Because one thing that I have noticed is, we do a lot. Like I do a lot. Nolan, you do a lot. Nancy, I'm pretty sure you do like a ton at your role. And sometimes when we take on projects, we can get so excited and we can start it from inception see it through to completion, and we move on to the next project. So I specifically set time in my calendar where I am writing down, or I have a folder. It's called my Teron folder, and I just simply remind myself, like, hey, like Teron, you ran like a bomb project, like, you cut down, costs for the company by $10 million. You should be excited about that, and you should like get an early happy hour and celebrate because you deserve that. So remembering those goals is super important. Should it be with every job that you change up your resume that you're applying to? 100%. I do think some jobs do require different things, and if you have that experience, but your experiences aren't reflecting that specific role that you're applying for, then 9 times out of 10, it may not be, you may not get past the applicant tracking system at this specific company, and that's where TEKsystems comes in play, because we're going to help you, right? We're going to be that bridge, and we're going to bring out those specific things that our clients are looking for to help you stand apart. Yes, we can just skip to the happy hour, right? Like, I mean, I think companies should offer that, like an all-day happy hour, maybe like one day, like come in, we have, the bottomless mimosas, and then we go to lunch for a new time drink, and then, we finish it off at 5 o'clock, just chilling. So we can work on that. Cool. So, but just making sure that you change your role also with every job. But also, let's get into like, what do we think should be on our resume, right? So starting off, of course, contact information. It doesn't have to be your full address. I keep it simple to the city. We do have, some creeps out there now. So just from a safety standpoint, I would not advise you to keep, your entire address on there. I would keep the main city, like Greensboro, North Carolina, Winston-Salem, Burlington, North Carolina, and so forth, instead of the full address. Check for errors in your email address. A lot of times I see this, when I reach out to a candidate and there are errors within their email address, and it comes back to me when I try to reach out, and I'm like, wow, like that's an opportunity missed. Make sure you check for errors. And one thing is, like with resumes, I don't know, I wasn't an English student. I'm not the best English, I couldn't go back and be an English professor because it couldn't be me. But for some reason, when I look at resumes, I can immediately see an error. Right? So make sure that you are checking for errors. Make sure, because that's the easiest way if you get past the applicant tracking system at some companies, that's the easiest way for recruiters to immediately say, no attention to detail. So that's easily going into the trash can. So Cool. So make sure you check for errors throughout the entire resume, not just contact information. And then, of course, your professional summary, professional objective. How do you guys feel about objectives and summaries? Which one do you prefer? Chat it in, talk to us. Do you prefer a summary or do you prefer an objective? So we have both, objective and summary. Okay, so objectives seem a bit dated. Cool. Yes. So I am 100% advocate for getting rid of objectives, and here's why. So, and add in that professional summary of your experiences. So what it does is it highlights the job seekers, or highlights your skills and the proven ways in which they've used those skills to achieve the results. For example, so let's say an example of an objective could be to obtain a search engine marketing position at TEKsystems. It's not really providing any value, but if we switch it around to that professional summary and say, hey, email marketing professional with 10 years of experience looking to transfer, my skills into SEM and advertising, doesn't that sound better? Right, because it shows now what I can bring to the table, not just a mere like, hey, to obtain a marketing position at TEKsystems. Right? So making sure at the end of the day, even though a resume is a piece of paper, you need to be finding ways that you can provide value on that piece of paper, right? And then also when it gets time for the interview, that's when you reinforce it, like, hey, you saw it on my resume, I'm bringing it to you in person, this is why I'm the bomb.com, right? Objectives simply take up space without offering that value. So what summaries do is, professional summaries articulates the value, and you have a clear understanding of those selling points, and you then begin to emphasize your strengths. So yeah, Nolan, did you have anything?
I saw a question come through there, and it's a little small on my screen, so I apologize if I'm missing it. But I think it was something like, I've been in the workforce for a long time, and sometimes it seems like my summary would get really long. So Teron and I haven't actually discussed this. So my perspective on that, and you may see it in the next resume we have, I can't remember, but maybe keywords is another angle instead of writing a paragraph format summary, right? If you've got a lot of keywords that are important, and I've read probably 10 or 15 resumes today, that seems to be a good way to hit on some of the highlights instead of providing a paragraph format. So hopefully that helps a little bit. We can maybe show you an example here shortly.
Yeah. And then, as you are applying to your specific roles, I think, again, like what Nolan stated, like having those specific keywords, right? Like if I know I'm going to apply to a data-driven role, making sure that I bring in like, hey, I have 10 years of data-specific experience and, blah, 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 right? So I think it should be situational to the job that you're applying for. Cool. Your professional experience, right? So this is like super important, making sure that it's in order, and you are like, when you're detailing your roles, making sure that you're using those strong action verbs. What are some of those action verbs that that you responsible for, right? What those strong action verbs that make it seem like you are a leader. Make sure you took initiative to do this, right? You were responsible for, if it was a system that you implemented that cut down the, call time, from 10 minutes to 5 minutes, that is important. And I want to read that on your resume. I want to know that you headed up that initiative. I want to know that you are a part of that, that process of implementing that system, because it shows a lot. It shows, how you have responsibility. It shows, it just shows everything that you're bringing to the table. And I think that's important, bringing in those numbers, bringing in that quantitative, that quantitative aspect to your resume is super, super important. And, recruiters and hiring managers, they want to see those numbers. And then, of course, as we get into education, education is huge, right? Like, you should definitely have education on your resume. And we'll get into like formatting and what it should look like on the next slide. We actually have like a live exercise for you that we're excited to get you guys input on. But make sure your education is there, making sure that we know your awards, making sure we know some specific honors that you have. And then, where did you go to school? North Carolina A&T is where I'm from. You will definitely see that on my resume. And then, of course, adding in that skill section as well. This is like the most important. I think it's like really important, specifically when it relates to the IT industry, because a lot of recruiters, what they do is something that we consider the highlighter test. And so I think I'm giving you guys like a free tip. I don't know. We do something that we consider a highlighting test or highlighter test. And so in this highlighter test, it's important that we find those skills or those keywords, as Nolan was talking to earlier. We find those key terms within your resume. And sometimes if those key terms aren't in your resume, then that's an easy pass, but you may have that experience. So that's why it's important to understanding the job description, that you're applying to. If it's full of, the job descriptions are full of clues as to what companies are seeking in their ideal candidate, all right? So does the word data appear in the job description 7 times? If so, your resume more than likely should probably have the word data in it as well, indicating your specific experience around data. Does the role require 3 or more years of project management experience? Then a recruiter needs to see these specific words or needs to see this specific experience on your resume. Does the role require people management experience? Then make sure that your resume highlights what you've done in that area.
Cool. Click on to the next one here.
Cool. Can you guys see this?
Should be a scrub security resume.
Okay.
We got it.
Cool. So I want you guys to, I think someone said it's a little, Joe Benell.
Yeah, apologize if it's small. I had to do a screenshot to get it in there.
It's all good. So we're about to do a live resume exercise. Let's go. Don't you love work? Don't you love engagement, doing webinars? Let's do it. So during this, what I want you guys to do is to start typing in after what we just discussed about what should be included on your resume. Let's type in some things to, if you took the day off to work. So unfortunately, yeah, you did. We're about to put you to work, Carlos. Today we are. So I want you guys to start typing in what are some errors and what are some things that you like about this resume. Okay, Nancy said it's too wordy. Summary of the resume. Yeah. Keywords at the end, yes. So it's detailing his experiences. It's detailing his, his education, his certifications, which are huge in the technology industry. Easier to read, yes. It's just it's an easy format, right? So it's not too much going on. It's not a lot. It's easy on the eyes. So how many, the time that recruiters spend on reviewing resumes is probably less than what, 30 seconds, 20, 30 seconds, if that. So
yeah, I would say, it depends. I think initially I definitely kind of get a quick glance, and then you're probably making a phone call from a recruiter standpoint. And then the amount of time that we spend during that phone call and after is probably significantly more, right? Because we're walking through the details. But yeah, that first glance, and more importantly, we've got studies that show that clients, they're getting 15, 20 resumes for any position. They're only spending 40 to 60 seconds reviewing a resume before they, kind of put it in a yes, no, maybe pile. So you really got to have something that's very readable and attractive to start with, which goes back to Teron's point about, you by no means do we want to, emphasize people misrepresenting them skills. But if you do have skills, you need to make sure that they're relevant to the job and that they're highlighted in the front of their resume.
Yeah, and it just goes back to I think the major theme is, value, right? What value are you providing? You have 30 to 40 seconds to, blow the recruiter's socks off. And within those 30 seconds, if it's not, then you may be the perfect fit for that role, that next step in your career. But unfortunately, because of, the resume, or because of the value that wasn't provided, it's easily glanced over or looked over. It seems like unrelated work experience is brushed over at the end, makes it less lengthy on unrelated stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So I think what they're getting at here is where you have these company-wide ZB, these weren't necessarily, or some of these lower ones weren't as relevant to the job. And so they specifically took out the bullet points that came into play there and said, you know what, I don't need this to take up a lot of space because it doesn't matter. And in some cases, and once you get really far into your career, you may just completely take that off. I mean, I talked to somebody today that had 30 years of experience, but they really only put the last 10 years of the experience on their resume because the other stuff was, not relevant to what they were going for. So I think that flexibility is important.
Okay, yeah. Nolan, what do you think about this? Brad said, should CISSP be next to the name as opposed to education or certifications?
That's a great question. I mean, I think that, we're all giving opinions here, but I don't think it's a problem. I see it a lot. It definitely is one of those things that's going to catch you in the first 30 seconds, which is kind of key, right? Now, you can't put 12 certifications up there, but if you've got a couple key ones, and CISSP is definitely a key one, as you'll see in a little bit later slide, I think that's valid. Yeah. Maybe even in both places, right?
Yeah, and if you know that certification is in demand, and especially if it was Tyrone Foster, CISSP, I'm pretty sure like a million recruiters would call me.
For sure.
Not because I'm just Teron, but because I have the CISSP on there. No. Carlos, no location. Correct. Yes, we need location. Where are you open up to going? Like, what does that look like? All the certs are on the back. You need. Okay, yeah, this is small. All the certs are on the back. You need that to be on the first page to. Okay, I can't see the rest of it.
I think to bring it to the forefront, yeah. So taking some of those certs and putting them up front, I think that's a good point. You could easily do that, and it would add some value to be a quick catch of information.
And then no contact information. How does the employer reach this person? Right, Jeff. Like I don't.
Yeah, that's probably my fault. I deleted that for purpose for safety purposes, but I should have put a little block in there for it.
If you have no experience, would you type any careers you had before, even if unrelated?
I think you have to. Yeah, I think I've seen a few of those lately, and I definitely think you've got to be able to try and translate what you have. So if you did internships in college, even if they were maybe you did a sales internship in college, but you had a cybersecurity degree of some sort, and you want to translate that, you take whatever skills you have and try to highlight the most, the best, most relevant skills. And that's where I think coming and partnering with a recruiter or with someone in the company who can help you understand the role itself and what's required, as much as you can do that in advance, to Teron's point about networking.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. It wasn't hard, right, Carlos? You could have got you would have gotten an A on this. I'm pretty sure. See?
Right. So you want to try? Let's click on to the next slide here and see.
Cool. So why is networking so important? Like, so we consider that and we're like, networking. We hear that it's becoming more of a major thing. Like, oh my God, network here, network this, network that. I'm like, oh my God, what is networking? Like, what it really is networking, and why is it so important? Pretty much in my own terms, what I believe that networking is the process of building professional and or social contacts, not always for personal gain or financial gain, but it's a social process. I like that, social process. Oh, I'm gonna start using that. It's a social process that requires you to get up and virtually meet someone either face-to-face via Zoom or, this webinar. Hey, you have 2 new connections connections now. Nolan and Teron, if you didn't know us before, we're great connections. Add us on LinkedIn, shameless plug. Definitely add us. But now you have 2 more connections, and what happens is it requires, or it's meeting people over activities in a professional manner. But however, when networking, one thing that I have noticed is, I'm a guy where I can smell like if you're walking in the room and I'm already in a room, I can smell if it's not genuine, right? So I can smell already okay, Teron is about to come to me and try to make the sales pitch. It's not genuine, so let me walk away and avoid him already, right? So making sure that your intentions for networking, because people at the end of the day, Nolan is not going to do business with someone that they can't trust, right? Would you do business? Would you have someone come and, build you a house that you don't trust, that you haven't seen him, do before, or that person, him or her, do before, right? It won't happen, or if it does happen, it's like a 50-50 toss, like, will it turn out good or will it turn out like how I expected it? You will never know. And that's the same with networking, making sure that you're putting that, that effort into building a successful relationship to get to the point to where Nolan now trusts me. So I read somewhere actually that this is something that typically through this, you're building your network of people, right? And you're able to have advice in their specific area. So again, like Nolan, he's like the guru when it comes to security and staffing, right? So now I have this connection to this awesome IT staffing guy or staffing guy within security. I can call or LinkedIn Nolan, like, hey, dude, can you tell me about this CISSP certification? Or where do you see this going? Where do you see the trends of security going right now? I have this network of oh my God, right? And so what happens is now I'm building that trust. And so this is something that goes up the chain, right? So again, I heard some before, he was the master networking. He was in the Guinness Book of World Record for selling the most cars or something like that. And he stated that, he said, every person out there at least has 200 to 350 contacts that they know that could trust me. Right? So by tapping into 10 people, right, you're tapping into their network. That's amazing, right? And so now you've built a network of 2,500 people, not just 10. So which taps into that, right? So building that trust is super, super important. So the more people that you know, the better off you'll be. And so what happens and why network is important, it improves your creative intellect, right? I think I'm very creative. I think I'm the best person ever. But if I didn't have Nolan to brainstorm with this presentation probably would not be to the extent that it is, right? So it allows us to expand our minds. It allows us to expand from what we just simply know. It allows you to develop long-lasting relationships. Networking is so important in developing relationships. I know it kind of came with my territory because of the role. I was a recruiter. Recruiters develop relationships, but even before that, right? I think it's important that you are developing those long-lasting relationships. In college, I developed relationships with my professors, and right now, I call them and I'm like, hey, what's going on, Mr. Professor, you remember me? Of course I remember you, Teron, and it's been 5 years now. You're getting old, Teron, but you still I still have that relationship. That's what networking is, right? It's an avenue for newer opportunities. Now that I have a new connection, and now I have new relationships, I have the opportunity now to tap into their talent pool of opportunities. And I am now being noticed by others. And so how are you being noticed by others, Teron? What sense does that make, right? So now that I've connected with Nolan on LinkedIn, what does Nolan do? Teron posts a professional development tip, and Nolan likes my post. But now I've just exposed my expertise to Nolan's network. And now I have people from Nolan's network wanting to add me on LinkedIn because I'm just awesome in the area of professional development. Mind blowing. And so that's why networking is important. Networking is important. And then I want you to consider this too. Offers, I put this in bold and like big on the screen because I want you to get the point of why networking is huge. And I expect 30 people that are on this webinar I want 30 like LinkedIn requests by the morning, right? Like me and Nolan, we need at least 30 people to LinkedIn us to connect with us. Offers received from referrals, 60%. 60% of referrals are received or receive the offer with an organization. So you probably understand, like, that's why, like, some of our companies or some of the organizations that I work with, something that TEKsystems had instilled in me when I first started, like, hey, when I was starting to work on the role, they was, hey, have you spoke to this blah, blah, blah connection that you already have a relationship with? And at first I'm like, why should I reach out to them? Like, they have a job, but they have a network of people that may have the right qualifications for the role at the same company. So yeah, Nolan, did you want to say anything else about that?
No, I think that's just super important, understanding that basically the majority of the time when an offer is made, that person had some type of connection into the company in some way, shape, or form, right? It's not always this home run, hey, my brother works there, right? But like there's some type of connection. You met with somebody in a professional development capacity, you know them in some way. And there's just not enough to replace that. They can give you insight going into interviews. They can help you understand the environment and if it's a good fit for you. So many angles to that.
Yeah, and someone made a great point. I wish I knew who this was. We are among millions, and no one has time to get to know individuals or go through thousands of applications. Networking allows you to be a person, not just an application, and that's true, right? That is true.
Very cool.
Cool. Cool. So recruiter communication. What does recruiter, like, reaching out to a recruiter, keeping in communication with them? What does that look like? And what are the expectations of recruiters? And I think number one, clearly conveying your career goals. We want to know exactly what you're looking for. We want to know, like, I'm Teron and I'm a recruiter, but I want to be a security, like, I don't know, a CISO, right? Like, that's what I want to do. Like, so what steps, knowing that I'm bringing to you, like, what steps would I need to take to get there? Like, we want to know that. We want to know if that aligns, or we have opportunity that aligns with that'll get you to where you want to be within your career goals, and not just settling, right? Don't be indecisive. It's okay to politely decline from recruiters, right? It's okay to say, hey, this is not the right opportunity for me. It's missing this, this, and this. These are my requirements before going into a new role. Because there's one thing to be, when you start the interview process and you go all the way through the interview process and you get to the end and you're like, oh, yeah, nah, never mind. We're just doing this for fun. Because, like, now I get in there, it's situational, right? Like, if the offer isn't right, them are different variables in it. But, if you just went through it just to be going through the interview process, it's more of like, okay, cool. Like, now you're indecisive, and now what I think is important is how you're perceived. Your perception is changed, number one, by the company, and now it's changed by the recruiter as well that you're working with. Keep constant communication. We want to know how you're doing. Like, recruiters want to know, like, check in with us. Like, it's important to show your interest to the recruiter as well. So it's important that you are, keeping that communication. Like, hey, Teron, what's new? What new roles do you have out there? And it's okay to, not be like hot on the job market. It's 100% okay to be passive and just wanting to know what the market is like and understanding what areas, if there is more I know money always talks, right? If there's more compensation out there, like, keep that constant communication and relationship with your recruiters. And then lastly, don't lose your composure, right? Whether you get the job, if the recruiter takes you through the process, it's important to be a team player. And I love, like, one thing that, you know, we do it here at TEKsystems is we give you that feedback. If we have feedback from our hiring managers, if we have feedback, you know, when we're doing mock interviews between ourselves and you, we actually make sure that we're, you know, giving you that on-site feedback, like, hey, like, this is something that I would probably switch up. This is something that I would change. This is something I would change. When you prepare to go into the interview with the client, this is something I would do. But even if if it doesn't work out, it's still a learning opportunity. So make sure that you do keep your composure at all times, and make sure that you, you know, are being the best you. Be a team player. Because who knows, the opportunity may come back around, and now you know how to ace the interview. You got it.
Yeah, I think this is something we can't emphasize enough, and this is not. I want to make sure I'm not, implying that we're outsourcing the responsibility of the recruiter to stay in touch with the candidates at all. But it is important, looking at a recruiter's job and trying to be realistic about what they're trying to accomplish, that you're not hesitant to reach out to them and don't just wait for them to call you, if you have a relationship with them. With that in mind, I would encourage you to focus in on a narrow group of recruiters that can have a broad swath of opportunities, because building those relationships, just like it is with networking, right? You're helping them understand what you're looking for. You're understanding their situation and what access they have to talent or the opportunity. Those are the types of things that make a big difference in really maturing your career versus feeling like you've got to depend on 20 different recruiters and just grab at the best one or whoever sends you the most recent thing. And the flip side of that for my work is obviously really putting a lot of focus on building those relationships and getting a deeper and deeper understanding of my clients, so that then when I'm translating that to my recruiters as we have needs, they can be able to tell a story to the candidate about, hey, what is it really like to work here, right? And then offer that communication, and then really talk through so that we don't get to the point where we have to be indecisive. Because if we had enough information on the front end, that really helps us be decisive about it, right? And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges that candidates would say they go through in dealing with recruiters.
Yeah. Carlos, we have some more homework for you.
So we've got, trying to make sure we can get this guy up here. We've got a little quiz or a little survey for everybody. I'm having trouble getting it to populate here. There we go. I think I skipped it. There we go.
Oh, there we
so
go.
Can everybody see that? It says, what's the projected number of unfilled cybersecurity openings worldwide by 2021 or 2021? Yeah, sorry.
So to join this, oh, you guys already got it.
So you go to this pollev.com/Tyrone Foster 704, and then it'll populate the same quiz. You can just click in there and respond. We'll give you a couple seconds to do that. I'll be showing some data here shortly that'll give us some more perspective on the labor market and help you see kind of what jobs are coming open broadly and what companies are hiring and things like that.
Yeah. Nancy, I am a recruiter. Nolan he started off his career here at TEKsystems as a recruiter. He's now on the client-facing side, and he actually runs a division within our organization as well. I'm giving your whole bio, Nolan. Sorry.
I appreciate it. Shout out. But I recruited for technology stuff, and I mean, once a recruiter, always a recruiter, right? Even though I'm out on the client side, they still see me very much as a recruiter, right? I'm tapped into the talent pipeline locally. We're starting to get some numbers here. I'm seeing 3.5. Hope nobody's Googling. Seeing 4 million, 1 million, 2.25.
And I think we have another question. Yes, Nancy, definitely feel free to connect with us, and we can definitely work with you.
Absolutely. We'll let this keep rolling, and then maybe at the end I'll bring back the actual answer. But I'll roll on. We've got some more data to share with you. I think it can just give you some perspective. See if I can. Okay, here we go. So this is more information broadly about the labor market. So if you just look at the whole of the U.S., You got roughly 160 million or laborers in the U.S. About 5 million, a little less than 5 million, are the IT population. Rough math, 3% maybe. I'd have to do that with a calculator probably, but unemployment rate in Q2 of 2020 was up to around 13, 14, 15%. I think at one point. For IT, it still stayed pretty low, and I'll show you that. I think the key information on this slide to recognize for everybody is that still 1/5 of the IT workforce works temporary or contingent labor. So they're contracts, project-based services that companies deliver. So I think, just keeping your mind open to those type of opportunities is important because it makes up a significant portion of the employment force. And then thinking about what type of folks typically work on contract, a lot of that work, not all, but a lot of that work comes through projects. So companies need, specialized expertise to execute on a project and deliver a new system, a new application, a new tool, whatever. And so it's a good way to sort of, if you have a high level of expertise in an area, to leverage that, right, to bring in money for yourself that you might not make in a full-time job, because they have to balance the compensation out across different components of your compensation package and benefits and things like that. The other part of that too that people a lot of times don't know is that even as a contractor, you can have access to benefits. So our company offers access to benefits. You can build a package with vacation time, holiday pay, things like that that are beneficial just based on what you really need, and it's kind of a la carte. So this is a little just historical trend here. Again, similar information. Back in 2009, we had the bubble, or the market crash. A lot of challenges there for everybody. IT unemployment was at a very high level relative to where it's at now, or where it was. This is kind of when I started here around January 2010. You just see a consistent decline. I mean, 1.9% in many cases felt like negative or positive unemployment, whatever you want to call it, where there was many, many more resources demanded than there were available. So, and this is a little bit more 2020 numbers just to see, massive spike here when COVID hit, and then definitely a spike in the IT space as well, is almost double. But to keep it in perspective, nothing in comparison to what many other industries felt. So we're fortunate in that. Now, I do want to say this is a national number, and I know that locally, I don't want to be dismissive of anybody's experience because it's been rough, right? We've had retail, we've had manufacturing clients here that just have been really, really decimated by this stuff. So, by no means am I diminishing it, just kind of giving some perspective nationally. So this is just a quick high level on if you went out to job postings and you're searching for opportunities and you're thinking about building a career in this space, what type of roles might you see? What type of roles might you need to build your skill sets for? These are the most in demand in terms of job postings and what we see companies asking for. Some of them are very generically used, like Wells Fargo has categories that range from level 1 to level 6, specifically for information security analysts. They also have information security engineers and a couple other categories in that space. So know that they're not necessarily, just because you're an information security analyst, you don't have a certain skill set, right? You could be across a broad swath of things, including access management, cybersecurity, defense, offensive, pen testing, things like that. But you'll see, these are the broad areas if you're looking out there trying to find something. This is a national representation of the last, I think it's probably a little beyond 12 months now, but this was the last 12 months as of like maybe April or something like that. The companies had the most job postings, which is, pretty significant. There's 7,000 job postings by Wells Fargo. They obviously have a presence here in our Winston-Salem area, as well as nationally. General Dynamics has a local presence as well. So just to keep that in mind, the reason I put this up there is because, with remote work becoming more and more prevalent, it's important to be aware of who the big employers are, even if they're not in your market, because you may be able to find an opportunity with them elsewhere. Let me just take a quick peek here. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. If somebody has a question or wants to ask anything. Okay, I think I'm good. This is another good, just a quick glance at something nationally, right? You see that this is an interesting data on where most of these jobs were posted in terms of their locations listed online, and you see it pretty much falls in line with where you might expect heavy populations, right? You got your Atlanta here, New York, DC, Virginia, Northern Virginia area, LA, Chicago up here. But I'm interested to see where this shifts to as companies begin to look at more remote work. And do we see higher concentrations of people living in more remote areas, or maybe just kind of flattens out a little bit in some of the heavy metro areas? And let me check time here. I'm moving a little bit quickly because we want to make sure we leave a little bit of time for more questions at the end in case you have them. This is a cool slide, I think, because as people think about, man, how do I advance my career? Well, by no means am I a proponent that security certifications are the answer to everything. And if you just go get a security cert, you're going to be fine, right? We all know experience is really, really key. But if you look at how many job postings have certain security certifications and you feel like your company is going to invest in you, or you want to invest in yourself and go get that, it's important to realize what might be the most beneficial to you. So I've definitely seen these are sort of the top 20, I think, if I remember correctly. CISSP being massively valuable. People love that certification, or at least job hiring managers tend to highlight that. But it's not necessarily achievable for somebody new, right? So you can't just go in saying, I'm going to get my CISSP, because you got to get some experience. And that's a tough chicken or the egg conversation. So if you look back here and you think, okay, maybe if I'm newer, I can go in to get a security plus, something that doesn't necessarily require me to have a lot of experience to achieve it. Just think about that a little bit and know that that would still be a value add if people are looking for that as they're identifying talent. And I would certainly encourage you to explore whatever your company will offer. If you're able to get a job with a company that can offer some type of training, or just rally for that a little bit with your manager. Say, hey, listen, I would love to incorporate part of my compensation package that I'm able to go to one training or sit for one certification on an annual basis or biannual basis. I think that's a fair thing to negotiate and ask for. And more companies are looking to do that because it adds value for them as well. Mm-hmm. So this is Bureau of Labor Statistics data around projected growth in jobs. It's very generic, so there's one of the things I'm not a fan of about this slide. But you got software development, you've got database admin, systems analysts, which are could easily contribute in the security space. So I don't think it necessarily represents, this information security analyst category doesn't represent the volume of opportunity that will continue to grow, but it just gives you a sense that there is significant growth projected. I think it says 12% here for the next decade. And then the other thing I think we need to be aware of that I'd like to share with folks is, when you think about the talent scarcity, I think we saw, or we will see here shortly in a slide, the massive difference in demand in terms of job postings, and then the labor supply in terms of people who are posting their profiles or seeking jobs. Some of those things that cause that rub and that challenge are a little bit self-imposed, I think, is one way to consider it. Bachelor's degree minimums, right? I have a bachelor's degree, I have a master's degree, I'm proud of those things, but I don't think that they make me necessarily, capable of doing my job as well. So, and especially when you get into these technical fields, it may not be valuable, or from a cost perspective, for an individual to go to a 4-year degree program and earn that, whereas they could go to a 2-year degree program and maybe get some real expertise in a short period of time and transition that. So if anybody has any comments or thoughts on that, I'd love to hear people's perspective, but I think it's something that we can just open our mind up to a little bit more. And I have seen the trend in that over the last couple of years. Experience requirements is another thing that can be self-imposed. I know in larger institutions, I think we see more of the, especially when they're looking at full-time hires, does this person on their resume have 5 years of experience in exactly what we're searching for? And I've had many managers, express some frustration to me around that being a problem, that they weren't able to hire somebody who they really liked because that person couldn't get through, some of the first steps of the interview process just based off of resume screening. And that's tough, right? I mean, that's a little bit of a self-imposed issue there. Retiring workforce is definitely going to be a challenge for us over the next 5-10 years across companies, not just specific to IT, but it definitely impacts IT. And I would say some of the limitations around international H-1B visa holders and being able to employ them. We've seen tightened regulations around that and limitations that impact all of us in a negative way. And so Everybody may have different political beliefs on how that system should work, but it certainly impacts our scarcity of talent, because a lot of folks that join us from an H-1B perspective are able to provide a lot of value and knowledge that we need in our industry. So other things that are just of note here, right? You got healthcare. These are graduates in their particular technical industries. Healthcare has increased 168%. Over the last 10 years, biomed 67%, engineering, computer science only 10%, which is a little concerning given the amount of growth that we're expecting to see in the industry. So this is why I go back to this whole idea of maybe relaxing some of our requirements, not because we want to have less caliber individuals, but just because it's important that we consider all those different angles and things that we can do to grow our base. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here shortly. So this is a supply and demand graph, and it shows a little bit about different areas within cybersecurity. There's a couple things that I'll mention here where I get a little frustrated, but I think this was also, if I remember correctly, this was BLS data that was being pulled. So you just see the dark blue is the frequency in the job postings and what we might consider one measure of demand. The lighter blue is the frequency in the profiles and people that are posting their job or their profiles to CareerBuilder or LinkedIn directly to companies, which are then reporting up, what their talent pools look like. So massive demand outstripping supply right here across all of these skill sets. The one where it looks a little funky, network security, looks like there's just so much more talent. I wouldn't say that actually feels true from a recruiting standpoint. And then you've got this whole firewall category here that could easily be lumped into there that would add a lot of demand. So I think some of it may be semantics there, but again, just another view on that. So if I'm thinking from a career perspective, I'm going to look at this and go, okay, where are the areas that I need to focus my skill set on? Certainly cyber, some of this stuff goes across these skill sets. I would say from what we're seeing locally and what I'm particularly involved in, governance, risk, and compliance space is really a growing area where companies are having to take on additional responsibility for third-party vendors, right? They have to take on the liability associated with their level of security. So really getting into that space, meeting PCI, SOX, HIPAA, all these different regulatory requirements is becoming an increased priority. Let me check the questions here because I imagine I may be missing something.
I'll manage this, Nolan. Let me see. So one question we have is, how often are companies looking at entry-level positions to have a security certification?
Yeah, so I think it's not often a requirement. We honestly don't get a lot of entry-level security roles. Now I said we have some junior level from time to time where that might be 1 to 2 years of experience, but oftentimes, people want somebody with security experience or with IT experience. So they may go into a desktop or help desk role and then into a desktop support role. An entry avenue for a lot of security folks is identity and access management. So you may have gone into a desktop or help desk support role and been involved in password resets and making sure that people, access is accurate and represented fairly for what the company's risk level is. And so that transitions into identity and access management. Maybe you worked in a NOC or a network operations type environment that was blended with a security operations environment, and you kind of transition in that way. So I'm not going to argue that certifications are required, but I think it can be maybe a separator, right? What else you got, Teron?
I think this was in reference to another slide, the previous slide. But okay. Someone said, I think maybe computer science is sometimes a part of the software engineering. Is that an overlap? And then one can have a boatload of excellent experience without a degree. Formal education doesn't work for some.
100% agree with the formal education comment. It's just not necessary for everybody, right? And it can be difficult, right, in the job market with that space, especially now. But I agree 100%. I think we got to get beyond that a little bit. Not that I don't think it is valuable in some ways, but not necessarily required.
Yeah. What would you recommend looking for in terms of an entry-level position, especially if someone's coming from a different field?
So that's a good question. I think people get frustrated with my answer to that a lot of times, but it tends to be getting into some type of help desk support type of role. to get in the door somewhere. That kind of is where a lot of entry level goes in. There are entry level software development programs. If you have some type of, generally you would have to have some type of degree or certification in programming. We also saw for folks who had some of that degree in computer science and had some programming skills, entry level quality assurance testing type roles. So I would say those are sort of the normal avenues that we see. It's pretty tough to jump into a cybersecurity analyst role. One other avenue that may be viable would be somewhere in the compliance space. I haven't made a successful placement in this way yet, but I can see a translation between somebody who has really good project coordination skills, really good eye for detail, technical writing skills, maybe who could jump into some portion of that, vendor risk assessment type work. So maybe that's an avenue to explore if companies need some help.
Jeff stated, Nolan, not a question, but thanks for pointing out that in cybersecurity roles, entry level is really hard to land, but I've robbed some good service desk folks for cyber roles.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I think we've talked about that with you specifically, having that eye for looking out for people from a skill set perspective versus a qualifications perspective. And that's something I'll get to here in a second. I think that's super important that we do as a country, as a world, really. Is that all the questions, or do we have a couple more coming in?
Just one more,
Okay.
well, two more. If there is such a gap in those positions, wouldn't it make sense for companies to open up training instead of not filling the positions?
Yeah, I'm glad my logic applies to other people as well. So I think that's something I'm going to hit on in a couple slides here, that we definitely got to figure out some ways to emphasize training, and our company has some solutions that can help accommodate that as well.
Okay, and then one last one, then we'll hold questions to the end. What roles would you suggest for entry level for people who has a major in cybersecurity and worked as IT systems engineer for 1 year and developer for over a year?
Wow, that's a pretty diverse skill set for somebody at that level. That's cool. So I would be interested in thinking about, maybe some type of SOC role where you have an understanding of the different systems that are in place. You understand some of the implications of application security, probably if you've got some early software development experience, or you could easily pick up on that. So maybe something in that space. I know application security groups are starting to build up and form more and more within companies now. So maybe there's an avenue there, maybe not always strictly focused in the security space, but a DevSecOps team within a company is going to lean on people who have the understanding of the operation side as a systems administrator, network administrator, as well as people who can do development and help move some of these applications through the pipeline. And then obviously I added the SecOps part in there because people are trying to build security into the process now more, which is a smart move. Cool, and we'll jump into this one, and then certainly I'm open to more questions. I think we've got a good 10 minutes left, so I've only got a couple slides. So this was top obstacles to hiring. This was just information gathered from executives and leaders, managers that we had worked with over time, and they really sort of broadly across the industry. So sourcing talent with technology or expertise in emerging technologies. This will forever be a problem because obviously as the technology emerges, there's going to be a very limited amount of people, but it goes back to some of my point about being flexible and open to considering more project-based contract work on occasion, because if you're working inside in a full-time role in a company, you build up this really tremendous expertise in cloud security, maybe, or whatever angle, there will be opportunities that open up for you as that emerges as a requirement for other companies. So it's really kind of looking at some of these areas of expertise and seeing what's going to be the next field or next area that I can build in. I always encourage people within a company to be volunteering for what's new, right? Always kind of get yourself involved in that and try to learn. Even if the project doesn't become this massive success, you're going through a process that maybe some other people haven't had a chance to go through yet. And that can offer a lot of learnings. Competing with a saturated IT recruitment market, of course, right? The pre-COVID things were super, super, super tight. It was, in some skill sets, it felt like 0% unemployment. And so trying to compete against all these different companies. I think that goes back to having to really establish your value as a company. So when you're working with someone like myself, or any other staffing partner, you got to help build a compelling story about what's going to be attractive about your particular role, about your company, about the growth path for that individual within the company. So I just think that's always important, and one of the remedies to this approach or this issue. Sourcing the right fit resources with soft skills. So this is a forever question again. How do we find the right soft skills? How do we define soft skills? And I think this maybe can be built a little bit in terms of some of Teron's direction about networking, right? Get out and work with folks and interact with them and understand their perspectives, because a lot of the soft skill, to me, comes into being open-minded and willing to consider other people's perspective and being a good listener. So as you engage with more people and you start to build up a little bit of that and realize what's going to help, that can get your skill set there a little bit more. There are some organizations like Toastmasters that can get you comfortable with more public speaking and things like that. I had an executive at a company yesterday talking to me about kind of what roles they were qualifying and what we needed to help them with, but then also kind of asking a question about, what's next for me is I want to be a CISO. How do I get there? Well, maybe one of my suggestions was to continue building her reputation and her networking through being on the speaking circuit. And that helps her build out some of her soft skills by being more interactive and having to, explain some of the thoughts that she has. So I thought that was relevant. Accommodating heightened salary expectations, definitely becoming a challenge in the staffing industry as well. It may not feel like it, that salaries have increased or salary requirements have increased, but they definitely have over the last 9-10 years since I've been at TEKsystems, coming off of the downturn that we had in 2009. So that has put a big squeeze on us. Companies more and more are asked to do more with less, so they have less budget, or they have a budget that they need to spread out more. And so how do we find that middle ground on what's going to be a realistic salary for people is a tough topic. Adapting to regional market limitations in terms of talent pool. I hear that a lot about Greensboro, honestly, is that we don't have a lot of strength in this emerging technology skill set. And I think that's fair. But I think it comes back to the question that someone posed earlier about how are we training and developing our people, right? What services are we offering, and how are we building the cultures of our company to help train and develop our people? So last slide for my topics here. And I just had some advice, suggestions, things to consider, at least from an employee standpoint. If you're looking at opportunities, back to Teron's point, start with your goals. Get some goals in mind, lay things out, put a plan together, what you want to achieve. There is not a linear path to this. So those questions about what are entry-level opportunities, it's not always clear, but we can help coach you through maybe some possibilities, right? Maybe it's help desk, maybe it's identity access management, maybe it's a SOC type function to slide in that way. But just don't expect it to be linear and straightforward. Identify high skill sets. So hopefully I provided a little bit of high level info today around what are some of the job skill sets that are out there. I'm interested to hear, Jeff, I think your team your group is presenting tomorrow. And these are actual cybersecurity hiring managers and experts in the space. And so they'll be able to talk maybe a little bit more about what some of the hot skill sets are. But I would encourage anybody on this one to go check that one out tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Participate in learning venues. So this is huge, right? This is a learning venue potentially for some people, but going to ISSA meetings and listening to speakers, going to conferences, just Googling, you can find almost anything on YouTube, right? Looking at companies' technology presentations, they do demos for free a lot of times. Just constantly being involved in that, pursuing certifications, create feedback loops. So this goes into the next topic about networking, but constantly look to build a feedback loop and build those relationships that you have so you can get some honest feedback. When people first meet you, very few times, unless you just have really direct relationships with people, are they going to give you true feedback on yourself, right? But the more you get to know them, the more you spend time, the more you become vulnerable to them and share with them what your goals are and what you need. They can have a little bit more insight into what's realistic for you and maybe offer you some of that feedback. Don't let people shut you down, but listen, right? Have those feedback loops in place so that you can kind of grow as an individual. From an employer standpoint, some of my advice is take a long view to what you're trying to accomplish. So it's very difficult as a manager level, or even as a director level, to be able to sort of transition back and forth between that I'm in the weeds, I got to make things happen, I'm being asked to do more with less, out to the strategic view. But if you can carve out time to try and do that and then incorporate your labor needs into that thought process, like if we want to accomplish this big effort, what are some of the labor needs? How can I partner with, a TEKsystems or just my HR internal recruiting team to help make sure that they can be pipelining resources or looking at opportunities or ways to build up a group of these resources to help me accomplish what I'm trying to do. Or maybe it's just I have the long view and I see, man, I have this really talented person on my team and I need to find a way to help educate them on this next phase of work for us. So just thinking about it, bigger picture. Identify key skills. So I feel like I have a pretty good relationship with a lot of my hiring managers, and they do a pretty good job because we've worked together for a long time in terms of boiling things down, right? You're unlikely to get the whole list of everything that you're looking for in the skill set of a person. But if you can really think about the role and think about personality characteristics that'll be successful and boil that down, that can help your internal recruiters, that can help your external recruiters, that can help you when you're trying to evaluate people. Which is, to me, hiring is one of the hardest things to do in any company. The technical work, you can figure that out, right? There's ways to learn that, but the hiring stuff is really, really difficult. Look for learners. So seek out people who are constantly trying to pick up new skills. Seek out people who have labs at home that they've tried to put together, right? Seek out people who are going to these informational meetings and trying to learn. And you can kind of tell that those are the people they're lifelong learners that are going to continue to grow within your company. This is a big thing, and I talked to my wife about this because she's helping lead some work at her employer around how people are built, how things are built into the culture. But mentorship and sponsorship are just huge. I think TEKsystems internally, we do a great job of this, building mentoring relationships. And I distinguish a little bit between that. Mentoring to me is, or maybe coaching is a better word for it, is sort of I'm probably somehow involved in your day-to-day, and I'm aware of what you're doing day-to-day work-wise, and I can help coach you on that stuff and mentor you through a little bit of it. It may have a little overlap in a broader perspective, but the sponsorship thing is more about, like I sponsor Teron internally at TEKsystems, and not in a formal way in that I have a job to do that, but that I know Teron's skill set, I know his background, and Teron shares with me that he wants to pursue the whatever CEO job. I can advocate for him. I can be in the circles of people that might be able to help him or help him have opportunities like that. So I just think that's really important that you're, as a leader in your company, you're building that into your team, because it's very easy to be so focused on your work and getting the work of the company done that you're not thinking about the development of your people, which essentially is how you get your work done. So, and then I'll also throw in Teron's plug, network, right? Just stay in front of people and continue connecting on those relationships.
Yeah.
So I think now we've got some time, maybe a few minutes left here. If people want to throw in questions, or you can always get offline. We've got our contact information here. You're welcome to shoot us emails or calls and see if we can help you out.
Let's see. So someone did say, I would love to be able to just train with the company and hopefully allow that to turn into a pre-hire full-time position. Not sure if this is very common with some IT software companies. Elijah, I would simply say, start reaching out to hiring managers, start reaching out to those IT managers, start reaching out to recruiters, specifically with connect with someone at TEKsystems, and not necessarily looking for a role, right? But you can, hey, is there any volunteer opportunities so I could get, start understanding, getting more experience within networking and, or software development, whatever your area is, or security. So reaching out to these hiring managers, somebody just wants you to come and shadow, and that's something that you can add to your resume. Nolan, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything else to that.
No, I think that's great. There was a presentation at the North Carolina Center for Cybersecurity group as we started getting that going pre-COVID. It's kind of slowed down just because of some of the challenges, but there was an organization called CrowdWatch, or Sea-Watch, I think it was, and they actually sort of focus in on helping folks who have some maybe less experience get some volunteer experience. And then one of the methods that they were using was supporting the Olympics when that was going to happen this year, which didn't obviously, won't, obviously, but you know, maybe looking to that crowd watch thing. I can probably send out emails on that if anybody wants to shoot me a note. But that's a kind of a unique organization. I'm hoping more and more stuff like that pops up where we can crowdsource training and development opportunities for people while benefiting organizations that don't necessarily have all that expertise.
All right, we got two more. Do you guys consider F1? Can you type the name here or send an email with the volunteer source? Do you guys consider, another question is, do you guys consider F1 OPT students and H1B candidates? If yes, do you sponsor the H1 visa?
So we consider, for our employment, we consider anything that our clients can consider. So definitely, I think we definitely place folks on F1 visas before. I've placed tons of folks on H1B visas before. So really it all goes back to what the client requirements are and their level of comfort in terms of if it's a full-time role or contract hire role, whether they're able to sponsor visas or not, just kind of based on company strategy. But absolutely, we support people in any situation.
And then the last one, I know it's 6 now. Oh, they want another quiz answer.
Oh, you got me. It's for those of you who put 3.5 million, that is the number of expected unfilled cybersecurity jobs in the next year. So pretty crazy to think about that. And that's worldwide, I believe.
Definitely. And Nancy, what I would suggest is maybe just connecting with Nolan on LinkedIn, and that way you guys can have, or he can send you the information on what you're requesting. Cool. But yeah, you got, one more. I agree with your comment of mentorship and sponsorship. My mentor was on me like white on rice when I set a goal to get a Security Plus. I have had 2 people in my network sponsor me or open the doors for job opportunities. They didn't work out, but those were available.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, thank you guys for joining us. We loved it. This was awesome. Maybe we should do a part 2, Nolan.
All right.
This was awesome. Definitely connect with us, and we would love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, thank you again to everybody. Feel free to reach out anytime, and next time we'll do it over drinks. How about that?
Yeah, happy hour.
All right, thank you all. Take care.
Guys.